and it was about change. It's a man who does presentations about this, and one of the important pieces that he brought up about making change in your life is having skills. You stay where you're at because you have certain skills, and it doesn't have to be positive or negative, or it's just you know how to handle that situation, even if it's the most negative situation. And one that he was dealing with as he was talking this was a man who was a drug addict who ruined his life, and finally came to the point where he was able to change, but he was able to continue to change because he developed new skills. He talked about the fact that he had wonderful skills. He knew how to go to a dumpster, dive in, and get what he needed out of it. That was his skill that he had as somebody who was on the streets, a drug addict, and needed to know where to go to get whatever food he could, because he certainly wouldn't spend money or really take time to get food. All he wanted was the drugs, but he still needed to do some kind of eating. And so when he was able to change, it was because he started to learn new skills, the skills he needed to live a different kind of life. And that's the real key to making changes in our lives, is the kinds of skills that we bring into our lives and learn. It's a very, very interesting presentation. In fact, there's a whole book.
Joseph Grenny.
Joseph Grenny.
Joseph Grenny. Smarts company.
How do you spell Grenny?
G-R-E.
It's the BioSmarts, is that what you said?
Vital Smarts.
Matt?
Yes?
Is Vital Smarts Joseph Grenny, is that guy's son?
Yeah.
Yeah, our home teacher's Joseph's father.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's
This is sounding familiar.
He's an older man?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, quite a bit older.
Joseph Grenny is about our age, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, like, I've
Okay,
heard of all
that's
this.
cool.
That Grenny name
Yeah.
and that
Four
company
New York
name.
Times bestsellers on change and
Yeah.
corporate
he's
change
really,
as well as it's awesome.
really, really
awesome
good.
stuff.
Oh, that sounds really good.
It is. It's
We've been going through some changes.
Yeah.
the book we
Yeah.
picked up was You Can Change Anything, or
Yeah.
How to Change
And he
Anything.
showed a grid, a 6-area grid of kind of this issue in relation to these two issues, and how you go through that and bring about change in your lives. And that's all in this book.
Great stuff. I don't want to get you too.
Yeah. But
We
anyway,
like the
just,
little recommendations.
yeah, but it just brought up when you talked about change and bringing about change, and because he really tries to discourage the idea that we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps.
Get out
I
of the
know we-
willpower trap.
Yeah,
he
the
said.
will,
We don't
it's a
have-
trap to get into the willpower thing that you can force, you can make yourself, you can overcome it just by wanting it enough. No, there's some things you have to do to be able to change your environment, to change your skill level, so that you live a different life.
Change your habits.
Change, yeah.
And
Make it
some-
easy for yourself.
One thing I've realized, well, maybe it's really getting on the subject, but I'll say this one last thing. Once you've changed your habit and you've got good results from it, then if you go to a new situation and you drop the habit, you also drop the results.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. 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 And doing it over and over again.
Yeah, you start again. Oh yeah, I used to do that when I got up.
Okay, fine.
So what's all this abundance have to do with liberty? Why did we spend a good chunk of our principles of liberty talking about this? I mean, we have an abundance of liberty, but
We had
why else is this related?
Liberty brings abundance.
I think he touched on it when he was saying there isn't really a scarcity. People cause a scarcity
Yeah.
to create power over others. If we don't understand the principle of abundance, then we can't really understand when our liberties are being taken through this power to cause scarcity. I think that was really good point that you made.
And along with that, if we expect the quote-unquote government to take care of us, if we think that's a proper
Yeah.
role of government to feed us, to take care of our health, to take care of our children's education, our education,
So we each get this.
if we,
Yeah.
and that goes along with one of the principles in here too, that we should never, ever turn it over to them.
No.
never.
Yeah.
We should be watchful and careful. Which one is that, B?
Was it one of the ones from this time?
Yeah. Just a second.
I have them written here. Free people cannot survive under a republican constitution unless they remain virtuous and morally strong. The most promising method of securing a virtuous and morally stable people is to elect virtuous leaders.
That might have been what the one. Let's see.
The Constitution should be structured to permanently protect the people from the human frailties of their rulers.
Yeah, that was the one.
That's
Was that 13?
13.
There's something in here.
So what I was thinking when you said that was that the government taking care of the people is out of harmony with the principle of abundance.
That's
kind
right.
of an oxymoron. The
It's
government taking care of the people.
Right, but the attempts of the government to do that and the desires of the people to be taken care of, they're seeking abundance through a means that isn't
Well, and the
abundant.
government, the big problem is the government is not seeking abundance for the people. They're seeking abundance for themselves, and then you're at the mercy of that government they will tell you how much is abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be even close to what you want. Or
I have a
should.
great example of that. We just heard on the radio, was it Reading the Crow with me or was it before that? I think it might have been before that. Cuba has decided that their sports, that their athletes don't need to defect. They'll let them earn money in other countries now. They'll let them go to other countries to play their sports and earn money.
Yeah.
Of course, they'll be heavily taxed and they'll still be required to play in their democratic leagues.
Right, right.
And then they said, and they're giving them a raise. Athletes will now earn, baseball athletes will now earn $41 a month.
Ooh.
That probably gets
They're
some high-
telling them that
probably
that's
high living in
abundance,
there. That's
right?
probably high living in Cuba.
Right? So it's all in the perspective.
Yeah.
If you're letting your government tell you what's abundance,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah,
that's a problem.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
they'll put the limit on it. Well, and I think it was in one of these meetings where we talked about how the government doesn't actually produce anything.
Anything.
They're
No,
a
they don't.
consumer. I mean, it's
They don't, yeah.
it's an entity that consumes. It's not
Yes, right.
a producer. So the idea that we're going to get abundance from the government doesn't even make sense because the government doesn't have or make
Anything.
anything.
Yes,
No,
yes.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's this one quote in here about what we were talking about just a bit before about being suspicious of we should be watching our leaders. For it is a truth which the experience of all ages has attested that the people are commonly most in danger when the means of injuring their rights are in the possession of those toward whom they entertain the least suspicion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's from Alexander Hamilton.
Mhm. Yeah.
That we need to have watchful care and suspicion is, don't turn over your prosperity or your rights or anything over to anybody else.
Yeah. This fits in so well with the whole Federal Reserve thing.
Good.
I think we can kind of go from there to our responsibilities, our liberty,
Mhm.
our abundance is our responsibility.
Mhm.
And even in an eternal sense, it is our responsibility.
Mhm.
Heavenly Father promises us all that it is our responsibility to live in a way that will make it ours.
Yeah.
And
Like
our
our
liberty is our
inheritance.
responsibility, not the
Yeah.
government's, not the, we have to stay vigilant.
Mhm.
It's,
Well, in section
can't turn
121,
it over.
121 of the Doctrine and Covenants, it talks about something flowing to you naturally without effort.
Yes.
It's a little different issue than talking about abundance. It's a very spiritual thing, but still, the principles of abundance come naturally. You don't have to force them. You don't have to make them happen or worry about them. If you're living correct principles, they happen naturally and effectively. And that's what, as we get into this discussion about the Federal Reserve, that's the whole contrary principle here, is men wanting to control and make things happen according to their principles, and how it would work if it was just left to flow naturally, the way it should.
I think that is a really good segue to another portion of what we wanted to talk about today, which was Audrey encouraged us to have an action plan, a 2-part action plan. Since this is the last meeting of Principles of Liberty, so where do we go from here? We're gonna dissolve this group.
Action plan, I forgot to do that.
And the 2 parts are what we're going to do from here, what's our next step. Hopefully with a little more insight, a little more something that we got out of these last 9 months together. For me, there's a lot more insight. And so the 2 parts are increasing our public virtue and increasing our private virtue. And that's how she kind of boiled it down to what are you going to do. And so I wonder if anyone just has any thoughts. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I made this new resolution for right now. What you're currently doing or what you plan to do or what's your action plan, whatever. Any ideas about that?
Well, I've been emailing Mr. Bruns.
Is he the man?
He's the one running for mayor that